The question really isn't, do I need to plan? I think the question I would want people to ask themselves is, the plan that's in place, is it going to accomplish what I really believe in the bottom of my heart? The documents that I have signed, the plan that I put in place, or the plan that will be put in place on my behalf because I don't have documents signed, is that really going to reflect God's will for me?
Most of us know we should have an estate plan. Most of us either don't, or we have one we haven't looked at in years. And then there's that strange quality to this topic where it both feels urgent and easy to avoid at the same time. Today, Eric and I sit with what changes when a family stops treating estate planning as a legal task and start treating it as a stewardship conversation. We talk about the difference between a plan that is purely technical and a plan that reflects what God is calling you towards. Welcome to the Smarter Generosity Podcast. I'm Katie Brubaker.
And I'm Eric Fleshood.
Now, most of us know we should have an estate plan, and most of us either don't have one or we have one we haven't looked at in years. Okay, so Eric, I'm just going to start with a confession. I'm in that category. So as we're talking about this, I'm talking to myself here as well, because I do have an estate plan, but it needs updating. So I'll just start with that confession. So estate planning, though, it kind of has this strange quality of both feeling urgent and easy to put off at the same time, which is why I'm in the situation that I'm currently in. But today we're talking about what estate planning can look like and what changes when a family like ours stops treating it as a legal task and we start treating it more as a stewardship conversation. Eric, when families come to Cru Foundation for help in this space, what would you say is usually going on? Kind of what are they thinking about as a couple or an individual or as a family? What's going on for them in that moment?
Yeah, I think there's two categories, roughly speaking. One is there's a life event that's currently unfolding or has just recently happened that's sort of driving the felt need to the surface to get this taken care of. So it could be, a second marriage. It could be, a new baby, or moving to a new place. Something happens that makes people go, "Oh, gosh, we better take care of this." The second category of people, and this is the category I prefer. I'd love for everyone to experience things more from the second category, and that is, wow, I have been blessed with so much. I really want to give some good thought to what is God calling me to do with it all. And that's the opportunity you have through Cru Foundation's estate design service.
Well, let's start there then. So tell us about Cru Foundation's estate design service. What does that mean? What is the service?
Yeah, this is a pre-estate design step that people can take. So, the studies are clear, Katie, that so many people will spend money and time paying an attorney or someone to draw up the documents and then never sign them. And as researchers have dived into that, what they've discovered is a lot of people don't want to sign it because they don't understand what the plan is doing, or they don't have confidence that the plan is achieving what they set out to achieve. So this is where we come alongside and we say, hey, we're not attorneys. We can't draw up the legal documents that you would sign to execute a plan. But what we can do as people who are steeped in what the Bible has to say about these things is, let's take a breath, let's take a step back, and let's kind of blue sky this thing. And first of all, get in tune with your heart. What is God saying to you about, the purpose of your money and your wealth? And then let's talk about the outcomes, the ultimate outcomes that you would want to have out of your life for your loved ones, your family, your community, the causes that you care deeply about, and
Mhm.
let's sketch out a blueprint of how those assets could be used to support that kind of big picture, whole life meaning of what's my life really about, and what are the ultimate outcomes that God's called me to.
Mhm. And it's a lot of big conversations like that. And I feel like our team, it's our honor to be able to step into that sacred space with donors. And it really is, because it's the combination of, I mean, you've got family and all the family dynamics, and every family that we've sat down with has their own stories and relationships going on within the family. And then you also have money, and what is the Lord calling you to do with the money, the resources, everything that you are stewarding. And so those are, like I said, two very sacred spaces that come together in making decisions around that.
That's right. That's right. And I'm so glad. I love that phrase, sacred space, because that's a unique contribution I think that we can make to the process. Attorneys have expertise in a lot of things, and we need that. But most attorneys aren't thinking, I need to create a sacred space for my client. So
Right.
when they walk in and we need to decide who's going to be the guardian of my children,
Mm-hmm.
uh, they they need an answer. They need you to fill in the blank. And lots of people haven't taken time to really think about that. They haven't sat with someone who's can be a sounding board, who can point them to scripture that helps inform that decision, who brings wisdom to the table. So that term sacred space is really a good one.
Well, and I will say a lot of people will come initially more on the technical side of things, right? So they're saying, should I have a will or a trust? What's the difference? Here's what my estate looks like. Can you help walk me through the technical? But the technical, those conversations always lead into the relational, and really kind of that big picture um, question about stewardship. It all kind of comes back to the clarifying conversation. At least in my experience, that's
Well,
where it's
yeah,
landed.
we really believe that it should, and we believe that's part of the reason many Christians have found, estate planning so dissatisfying, and a morbid experience, because we believe that it needs to be spiritual before it's mechanical,
Right.
before it's technical. Um, and that's really where the fun is. The fun is in the seeking the Lord in a process that's spiritually healthy, spiritually oriented. You get grounded in meaning and purpose, direction, and then you can begin to make selections like, well, what's the best tool to get where God's calling me to go? Is it a will or is it a trust? Um,
Mhm.
don't just look at the features of benefits of one or the other without asking the why questions first.
Mhm. Well, how old would you recommend somebody is before they start thinking through this, or, call and say, "Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to go through this process." What's the right time in life to begin this process?
Yeah. Well, it really, it's hard for me to imagine any adult, whatever your stage of life, whatever your marital status, who would not benefit from this, because you have been called to steward certain things. You're in possession of certain things, and the question becomes, well, what am I supposed to do with it? And
Hmm.
if I become, unable to live the life that I'm currently living through disability or some other event, what is the plan? Do I just want to let the authorities, the courts, and others decide for me, or do I really want to understand God's purpose and take steps to make sure that God's purposes will be followed, whatever happens.
You make a good point, because if you don't have a plan, or if you don't make a plan, there is a plan for you. There is a default.
Yes,
It's just not the one that you chose.
that's right. That's right. There is a default, there is a backstop, but many people find it when they look into the details of what that's going to be, it's undesirable.
Sure. Well, and we started down this path at the beginning a little bit when I was saying how I'm an example of somebody who needs to update, our will. But for those of us out there who say, I haven't even started one, or I need to update mine, and we just keep putting it off, what do you think is underneath the avoidance of it? Why is this one of those things that we put? I mean, I think statistically, taking care of estate plans is one of the things that people put off the longest in life. Why do you think that is?
Right. I think there's a number of factors. There's cost, right? That can be a barrier to people. There's, it sounds boring. It sounds technical. It sounds, most of the time, if you have to go to an attorney, something's wrong. I don't want to do that.
That's true.
With all due respect and graces to our attorney friends that are out there, we need you. We love you. We can't. This world can't operate without you. Make sure you hear us say that. I think another barrier is, frankly, the fear of death. There's a man out there named Russell James who has done a lot of brain science around this, and he's actually looked at brain scans, MRIs of people when they are invited to attend an estate planning seminar. And what he has figured out is that if you do not want to have anyone come to your estate planning seminar, make sure you talk about death, and no one will come.
So you can't say death, you can't say die.
Right.
That's
right. Death and taxes, people's, nobody loves those topics.
that's right.
And but here's the thing, wherever you're at in your walk, the gospel brings the good news that we don't have to fear death anymore, right? We've absolutely been liberated, completely freed from the fear of death. Now, we're all in process working that into our hearts and developing our understanding and our building our life upon that truth. But what that does is it opens up enormous freedom for the Christian. If I don't have to cling to things because I don't have to fear death, boy, does that create opportunity for me to be a blessing, both now and through in every decade of my life, right up to the end.
Well, and I think we all know or have heard stories of when things did not go well with a will or an estate, or I mean, we've heard the horror stories, and then what happens with the families sometimes too. And the difference between a family where going through the process and saying, okay, here, the parent or grandparent has it very clear, sort of the values laid out. They've communicated before death happens. Here's what I want to do and why, and just the relationship dynamics within the family. And I would say the relationship dynamics within a family is one of our top priorities that we are working with folks on, thinking through. And you said at the beginning, you said, this is relational before technical. And we take that piece very seriously, because like I said, we all know the horror stories of when it doesn't go well.
That's right. That's right. You could have the most technically sound estate plan that saves every possible dollar in taxes it could save, that handles each asset beautifully, and still have the family break up over grandma's brooch,
Right.
that diamond brooch that grandma had.
Right.
And that estate plan, you you might say it was a failure. I mean, if the family is not able to stay together, hug one another, and be
Right.
thankful for one another, what have you really got? So
Hmm.
people are way more important than dollars. People are way more important than the mechanics, and et cetera. But the mechanics, the tools, the techniques, all of that should support family relationships
Hmm.
and the preservation of those relationships through a difficult time.
So, Eric, practically speaking, then, when a family reaches out to Cru Foundation about an estate design, what happens? What is that process?
You will be working with someone who has walked with families of all kinds through all kinds of situations, and who is an expert at helping you create this blueprint that will make you attorney ready. And we start by asking questions. We listen first. We try to understand what your goals are, what you want to get out of the process, what are the hindrances that have stopped you up till now, and what would be a good outcome for you. And then the next phase of the process would be understanding your property. So what do you own? How is it owned? We want to understand the people. Who are the important people in your world that need to be taken care of, that need to be loved through this process? And as we put together a picture of your people, your property, then we talk about your planners. These are who are the advisors in your life? Your attorney, your accountant, your financial advisor, and what input might they have into your blueprint. And then we bring it all together and we deliver it to you in a very professional packet that explains in plain English uh, a way for you to look at your assets and implement a plan that achieves what the Lord is calling you to do. And that packet is attorney ready, makes you attorney ready. It prepares you for the conversation with your attorney, and it keeps you in control of the conversation because you're walking in understanding how this is
Hmm.
supposed to work. You've gotten familiar with the terminology. You have made some of the key decisions. You don't have to make those decisions on the spot while the attorneys, got billable hours going on. You've crossed a lot of those bridges. Attorneys love this thing because the clients come in well prepared,
Hmm.
and it makes communication between client and attorney a lot easier.
Well, and that's one of my favorite things about it too, is that it gives the space for you to ask questions before you go in and meet with the attorney. So I mentioned the question, should I have a will or a trust? But there's a whole bunch of other things, power of attorney. Okay, how does that work? What about in my state? How does this operate? It's just all these little things that come up as you start working through the decisions that you're making as a family, as a couple, as an individual. And so instead of having that conversation in the attorney's office, you can have it beforehand so that you feel confident and clear in the plan that you're putting together and submitting to the Lord and saying, okay, is this what you have for me? So I think that's a really wonderful way to go about it so that you have the confidence to be able to
That's
have
right.
that meeting with the attorney.
That's right. And especially if you're doing this for the first time, like so many people that walk in, and they don't realize, oh, I've got to decide who's going to be in charge of my health care if I can't make those decisions myself. I need to decide who's going to be the guardian of my children. I need to decide, who is going to take over decision making and important parts of my life, and how do these all fit together? Who's going to be the executor of my estate? Should I pick my oldest child? Well, what kind of pressure and expectation does that put on your oldest child? Might that disrupt family dynamics?
Hmm.
And so people walk in and they're not prepared to answer these questions, and they feel like, well, gosh, I need to think about that, and that's
Hmm.
what our service helps them do.
Hmm. Well, and one thing that I also like about it in that it allows people who sometimes they say, okay, I'm coming into Cru Foundation, I'm unfamiliar with you. However, I've started to look at all these different tools and things that Cru Foundation does. I have no idea where to start. Maybe the generosity, the idea of stewardship on the whole is new to them. And they are excited about it, but maybe overwhelmed. I would say the estate design service is a great entry point because it helps you get your arms around your entire estate, and it looks at generosity from, in the future, kind of the legacy after you've passed giving, but also current giving.
I'm so glad you brought that up. You're exactly right. And I sometimes struggle, frankly, with our name Estate Design Service because it communicates that this is only about end of life planning, and nothing could be further from the truth. This really is a master stewardship plan for your entire life. It's taking a look at the whole picture, all of the important people, your whole universe, and figuring out a plan for how to steward it well. And what you're doing is you're beginning with the end in mind, right? That's one of the basic principles of master planning is, okay, where do you want to end up? Okay, work backwards from there. And so in that sense, an estate design really helps you do that big picture beginning to end planning.
No, I think that's a good summary. Well, if someone takes one thing from this conversation, Eric, what would you want it to be?
Yeah. I think I would say the question really isn't, do I need to plan? I think the question I would want people to ask themselves is the plan that's in place, is it going to accomplish what I really believe in the bottom of my heart? Is the documents that I have signed, the plan that I put in place, or the plan that will be put in place on my behalf because I don't have documents signed, is that really going to reflect God's will for me?
Well, if someone is listening and realizing that their plan doesn't do that well, where do you think they should begin? What would be the next step?
I would invite our listeners to just pick up the phone, give us a call at Cru Foundation, or email us, and just hear a little bit more about our estate design process. Ask the questions, figure out, is it going to meet your needs and help you along in the process? A lot of people find that it jumpstarts the process for them. It equips them well. A lot of people look at it as a free second review, second opinion, which, by the way, did we mention there is no cost and no obligation, meaning you're not going to get a bill from us for this service. Conservatively, it's about a $3,000 value, but we provide this as a ministry to you. We think it's that important. And so you won't get a bill from us, and we'll never tell you where to give. We'll never tell you how much to give. We trust that you are the steward. You're the steward, and we are on your side of the table, assisting you achieve God's will for your life.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you, Katie. It was great talking to you.
Thanks. You too. See you next episode.
The gospel frees us from the fear of death. When you understand that, it changes what estate planning even is. If you're not clinging to things because you're not afraid of losing them, you're free. Free to be a blessing now in this decade and in every decade you have left. Free to plan with joy instead of dread. Free to ask a different question than the one we usually start with. Not what happens to my stuff when I'm gone, but what is God calling me to steward while I'm here? And how do I want that stewardship to have generational impact? That's a question worth creating space to answer. And our estate design service is built to give you that space. We listen first, we help you think through your people, your property, and your purpose, and we help you walk into your attorney's office clear about what you actually want. If you'd like to learn more, visit crufoundation.org/estate-design. That's crufoundation.org/estate-design. There's no cost and no obligation, and someone from our team would really be glad to walk through it with you.
The Smarter Generosity podcast is for spiritual edification and educational purposes only. It is not intended to be legal or tax advice. Consult your professional advisor prior to making your gift.